Hey there, I'm the MadCatster. Am I glad to see you here? Well, no sooner did the TikTok psychic lose her defamation case, but now she's filed some more nonsense with the court. She doesn't seem to know when to stop, and we're going to look at why it's absolutely ridiculous and, in my opinion, unhinged. I'm going to break it down for you. You know me, I've got the deets and all the receipts, so buckle up and let's go. Ashley Gillard, the TikTok psychic, basically lost because the judge ruled that in terms of the motion for partial summary judgment, the professor was entitled to a ruling in her favor as to liability on those claims. And basically what is now left is for a trial to discuss damages. And the professor had also moved the court to allow her to amend the complaint to add account for punitive damages. And the court allowed that motion as well. The professor has now filed her amended complaint. Ashley Gillard now has basically, in my opinion, kind of gone over the edge because she filed a motion that's kind of like a jumble of all kinds of craziness. She's basically asked the court to reconsider the decisions on granting the motion for partial summary judgment and in granting the motion to allow the professor to amend the complaint for punitive damages. I can tell you right now, the reconsideration is never going to happen. I mean, the judge would have had to have made a huge error to now go back and say, oh, you're right, I should reverse my decision. What Ashley Gillard really should be doing is appealing this to the federal appeals court, but she's instead chosen to, again, file some more stuff, and she's filed a couple of things here, and we're going to unpack it right now. So before we get started, I would like to give a big thank you to the sponsor of tonight's video, Private Internet Access. When you're browsing the internet with an unencrypted connection, it's sort of like if you were to mail a letter and not seal the envelope, so that along the way to its destination, anybody could take a look at the contents. Whenever you're browsing online on an unprotected device like your phone, tablet, laptop, desktop, gaming console, your device is transmitting a lot of information out into the internet that people can intercept along the way. A virtual private network, or VPN for short, is an app that hides your IP address and protects your connection through an encrypted tunnel. This way, your digital life is hidden from those who might want to take a look at it and exploit it, and you're protected. Whenever you're connected to public Wi-Fi, your data is not protected if you're not using a VPN like Private Internet Access. Hackers that are connected to the same Wi-Fi network as you are have the ability to steal your personal information, your photos, documents, communications. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal information by encrypting your internet connection through their world-class infrastructure, which makes your information safe and bulletproof. Private Internet Access also allows you to access region-restricted content from all over the world, and this is one of my favorite things. Popular streaming services such as Amazon Prime, Netflix, Disney+, they all have libraries of content that are dependent upon the region where you're physically located. Private Internet Access allows you to overcome this blocking restriction by allowing you to select an IP address in one of over 90 countries and in any one of the 50 states. For instance, if I want to watch the UK show Life on Mars, then Private Internet Access allows me to select an IP address located in the UK, then I can go to Netflix and I can watch the show. Private Internet Access also allows you to protect an unlimited number of devices. Private Internet Access is available on all platforms: Windows, Mac OS, Linux, iOS, and many others. Also, Private Internet Access is the world's most transparent VPN provider. They've got over 30 million downloads, and they never record or store user data. No logs policy has been proven many times in court and by a third-party audit from Deloitte. And what's really great is Private Internet Access is giving you guys, my viewers, a very special deal. You're going to get 83% off, which amounts to $2.03 a month. Plus, they're going to give you 4 months for free. Use my link, which I'm putting on the screen down below. I'm also going to put it in the description. And I think you guys will find that the features of this are really great and you can feel secure. I recommend Private Internet Access not only for the security, but also because I love to watch stuff overseas, and I know you'll enjoy it too. So she's filed a motion to alter or amend the judgment. It's kind of really just a jumble of stuff. It's a mess. You'll see in a second. So here you see, here's her motion to alter or amend the judgment. It says that Ashley Gillard moves the court for reconsideration, alteration, or amendment of the order granting the amended motion for partial summary judgment and granting leave to amend the complaint to add punitive damages. Gillard moved to rescind from magistrate jurisdiction, requesting the reassignment of the case to a district judge. Okay, so there's that, and we're going to talk about that in a second. Gillard now moves the court to grant Rule 59E motion to amend the order and reverse the decisions, deny the amended motion for partial summary judgment, and deny the request for leave to amend the complaint to add punitive damages. Additionally, Gillard moves the court to render the entire litigation and all orders void pursuant to Williamson v. Barry. So she doesn't just want the judge to reconsider the judgment on the defamation and the allowance of the motion to amend the complaint, she wants the court to render the entire case void, all the way back to the beginning. So that's really craziness, first of all, because number one, the court's not going to void the entire case. Number two, all of the steps in this litigation, if Ashley Gillard had issues with them, she had the opportunity to file motions to oppose. She had the ability to appeal decisions made by the court. She, in some cases, has done that. She doesn't like the judgment, clearly. And so she's asking the court now to take this extraordinary step, which, trust me, is never going to happen. She's also filed a memorandum explaining why she thinks she's entitled to this relief. We're going to go over that in a second. And it's, in my opinion, kind of crazy that in support of her motion, the defendant intends to demonstrate that the judgment was based upon a manifest error of law or fact, should be amended to prevent manifest injustice and an impediment to justice due to lack of judicial impartiality. Now, I love when people lose a case, and I won't name names of some recent people that are high profile, claiming that the judge was biased against me, or the jury was biased against me. Well, I'm sorry if you don't like decisions that go against you, but it's very rare that there's impartiality. And especially when there's a jury trial. I don't know if you've ever heard the term voir dire, but when you pick a jury, both sides get to question the potential jurors usually, and they have the ability in some instances to strike potential jurors from the pool that they don't think are going to be good for their client. And in the end, both sides approve the jurors that are picked. So it's a jury of your peers. It's impartial. The process is transparent. Everybody has input into it. If you don't like it, tough. Okay? This part here kills me. So she says, in the audacity, the defendant respectfully gives the court the opportunity to correct its mistakes. First of all, don't tell the court it's made a mistake. Nuance that just a little bit so that you don't infuriate the judge or insult the judge. To correct its mistakes internally prior to the defendant exercising the option to file an appeal with the United States Court of Appeals Ninth Circuit, which is what she should be doing. Here she is now graciously granting the court the opportunity to correct its terrible mistakes. And she's going to explain why it's a mistake in a second. So I want to first address the whole issue about her asking for it to be rescinded from the magistrate and for it to go to a regular district court judge. And what it is the regular judges are extremely busy. And of course, their dockets are overflowing. They have what are called magistrate judges who are able to handle parts of the case, such as hearing certain motions and things. And the parties have to consent to that. The court can't just unilaterally delegate some of its responsibility to a magistrate. It has to inform the parties. The parties have to agree. Well, wouldn't you know? Look at this document here. It says, notice of assignment to a United States magistrate judge and consent form. In accordance with District of Idaho General Order 324, you're notified that the above entitled action has been assigned to a United States magistrate judge to conduct all proceedings in this case, including trial and entry of final judgment. So in this case, the judge has basically delegated the entire case to a magistrate judge. Exercise of this jurisdiction by a United States magistrate judge is, however, permitted only if all parties file a written consent form, a copy of which is part of this notice. An appeal from a judgment entered by a United States magistrate judge will be directly to the United States Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit in the same manner as an appeal from any other judgment of the district court. Consent to the exercise of jurisdiction by a United States magistrate judge. And you could see here, party represented Ashley Gillard, because she's self-represented, and again, stupidly, in my opinion, and her signature dated April 16, 2023. So, more than a year ago, she consented to this. She didn't have to consent to it, but she did. And if I remember correctly, in the very beginning, she accused the federal district court judge of being biased against her. So apparently every judge is biased against her, even the magistrate judge. Anyway, so she consented to this, first of all. So her request to now retroactively go back more than a year and rescind her consent, that's not going to fly. That's dead in the water, okay? Right out of the gate. Okay, now let's take a look at the reasons why she thinks she's entitled to have the entire case thrown out and all of the decisions rescinded and reversed. Now let's take a look at her memorandum. Introduction. As supported by law, defendant Ashley Gillard respectfully requests the court to amend the order and correct the manifest errors. She loves that word, manifest. The manifest errors of law and fact. Errors of fact. Okay. Additionally, Gillard establishes beyond dispute, that the court infringed upon her right to judicial impartiality and lacks subject matter jurisdiction, ergo, rendering the entire litigation void. On December 12th, 2022, Gillard received 2 demand letters from plaintiff's attorney. The letters demanded that Gillard cease and desist false and defamatory statements regarding Professor Rebecca Schofield. Gillard refused to comply with the demand letter because she contends that the information she published regarding Schofield's role in the deaths of the 4 students is substantially true. And she argued this before already. I don't know why she thinks the court is now going to buy this argument again. On December 21st, 2022, the plaintiff filed this complaint for 2 defamation claims against the defendant. One is premised upon alleged false statements regarding plaintiff's involvement with the deaths, and the other is premised upon the alleged false statements regarding plaintiff's romantic relationship with one of the students. Defendant affirmatively asserted 11 counterclaims. Now remember, all of her counterclaims got thrown out against both plaintiff and her legal counsel. And we talked about this before. You can't have claims against the attorney. The attorney represents the client. If you have a counterclaim, it's against the plaintiff. It's not against her attorney. The defamation counterclaims were premised on the fact that attorney Wendy Olson and plaintiff Rebecca Schofield slandered Gillard by issuing a press release and by making several false statements about her to the news media. The defamatory statements falsely stated that Gillard is a TikTok user who falsely accused Professor Schofield of the deaths of the 4 students to use the tragedy and the community's pain to gain a following. That Ashley Gillard is a liar who selfishly made false statements about horrific tragedies knowing they are false for a profit, and that Gillard made false statements knowing they are false. The defamatory statements about Gillard were published to over 100 news media outlets, printed on online newspapers, broadcasted across multiple news media, broadcasted on television networks, and streamed in documentaries. Documentaries? Does she mean like YouTube videos? To multi-millions of viewers. The remaining counterclaims were for civil rights violations, malicious prosecution, going after her for accusing the professor of being a murderer and of having an illicit relationship, an inappropriate relationship with one of her students. Defending against that, that's not malicious. An intentional infliction of emotional distress stemming from the filing of this frivolous complaint. The defendant contended that the complaint was filed to silence her, ruin her reputation, prevent anyone from taking her statements about Schofield seriously, and ultimately prevent Schofield from being suspected of the deaths. And we've talked about how the police department took the extraordinary step of issuing a press release of its own, stating that in no way, shape, or form was the professor even remotely a suspect in this. We're going to talk about her argument now, because the rest of it, I don't think we need to go over. So first she says that the summary judgment is a violation of the First Amendment. First, the statements Gillard made were based on her spiritual beliefs and practices. In Cantwell v. Connecticut, the court explained that the religious clauses of the First Amendment embraced 2 concepts, the freedom to believe and freedom to act, by ruling that the messages Gillard received and promulgated by way of tarot and oracle card readings are not true. The court takes a stance on the truth or falsity of Gillard's spiritual belief and practice. This is barred by the Establishment Clause, which prohibits the government from making laws respecting or disrespecting an establishment of religion and prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Okay, the government is not stopping her from practicing her religion. If tarot is a religion, they're just stopping her from making statements that are without any support in fact. You can't say that because it came from the gods above, it must be true, and therefore I can say whatever I want. That's not protected by the First Amendment. Yes, she can practice whatever religion she wants, and the court and the government aren't stopping her from doing that. By deeming Gillard liable for defamation due to acting on her spiritual beliefs and practices, the court regulates punishment on Gillard for acting on her spiritual beliefs. And again, it has nothing to do with her beliefs. By allowing the complaint to be amended to add punitive damages, the court allows for egregious punishment of Gillard. First of all, the court's not allowing her to be punished. The court's allowing the professor to add a claim for punitive damages. It's up to the jury at trial to decide whether the professor's entitled to them and what those damages might be. So the court is not punishing her. The court's just allowing the process to move forward and to include the possibility of punitive damages. The court specifically stated that punitive damages are used to deter similar conduct in the future. The court rules against the First Amendment by issuing an order allowing for punitive damages. Nothing has been assessed or decided yet. She has the opportunity at trial to explain that to the jury and to present her evidence so that the jury will find in her favor on the punitive damages. Second, the court stated the statements Gillard made were bad acts because those statements were based only on defendant's spiritual intuition about the deaths. There was never any objective basis to believe the plaintiff did the things that defendant publicly and repeatedly claimed she did. In other words, the court determined Gillard's acts based on her spiritual beliefs and practices as bad acts because she did not have physical evidence to prove that the information gained from her spiritual practice was true. By requiring that the messages from Gillard's spiritual practice be objectively proven, it singles the spiritual practice out from other spiritual or religious practices and causes burdensome treatment. And then she quotes here from a case, and a lot of the stuff she quotes from these cases is totally out of context. The Free Exercise Clause commits government itself to religious tolerance, and upon even slight suspicion that proposals for state intervention stem from animosity to religion or distrust of its practices, all officials must pause to remember their own high duty to the Constitution and to the rights it secures. Accordingly, legislators may not devise mechanisms, overt or disguised, to persecute or oppress a religion or its practice. Under the Constitution, blah, 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 okay? Under the Constitution, a law that is not neutral but targets a specific... First of all, there's no law here that's being passed against her. This is only about the content of the statement she made. It's not about the fact that she derived them from her spiritual practice. It's that there's no evidence to support that they're true, and she's destroying somebody's reputation. And I'm sorry if she doesn't like that, but you can't just go under the cloak of religious practice and say, well, everything I say I can say, and you can't stop me because it's religious practice based. No one's saying, oh, you can't use your tarot cards or you can't believe what you believe. They're attacking the fact that she made defamatory statements that are demonstrably not true against the professor. The United States Constitution provides specific protection for the exercise of religious freedoms and due process rights regarding fair and impartial legal proceedings. Collectively, the Free Exercise Clause and the Establishment Clause have historically served to ensure that the government is prohibited from unduly restricting religious practices of those individuals who desire to adhere to and practice one of their own volitions. Gillard cannot be punished for believing in spiritual practice, its message, nor can she be punished for acting on that belief. Yes, she can. Okay? She can't be prohibited by law from engaging in the spiritual practice, but she can be sued for saying things that are untrue about somebody when there's absolutely no evidence to back it up. That has nothing to do with depriving her of her right to practice whatever spiritual beliefs she wants to practice. But it's not a blank check for you to just do whatever you want. You still have to obey the law, and you still have to not make defamatory statements about people that are demonstrably untrue. Then it continues that, that the court ruled that Schofield proved that she did not order the deaths of the students. However, determination of the innocence or guilt of an alleged blank in Ohio, Idaho is within the jurisdiction of state criminal courts, not federal district court. Although, first of all, this isn't a criminal case. The rules are different. In a civil case, the court's not determining her innocence because, first of all, she hasn't been charged, the professor. The civil court, she's right, does not decide criminal matters. But the court can find that in terms of prosecuting a claim for defamation, that the professor has shown that there's no evidence that she is involved in any way. The best evidence she has is that the police have said she's not a suspect. She didn't do it. Okay? So there is nothing criminal to address here. Nor is it this court's authority to rule Mr. Koberger, who is the suspect who was arrested, guilty of the deaths. It's beyond the constituted authority of the court. The court is not passing judgment in the criminal matter. This is just nonsense. The plaintiff does not have a valid defamation claim. Pursuant to Idaho Jury Instruction 4.82, in order to prove a claim of defamation in Idaho, the plaintiff has the burden of proving each of the following elements. The defendant communicated information concerning the plaintiff to others. The information impugned the honesty, integrity, virtue, or reputation of the plaintiff or exposed the plaintiff to public hatred, contempt, or ridicule. And 3, the information was false. And 4, the defendant knew it was false or reasonably should have known that it was false. And 5, the plaintiff suffered actual injury because of the defamation. And 6, the amount of damages suffered by the plaintiff. Well, that's to be determined at trial. Plaintiff Schofield fails to prove elements 3, 4, 5, and 6 of the defamation claim. Schofield has not proven by a preponderance of the evidence that she did not order the deaths of the 4 students. Again, she's not even a suspect. Nor has she produced any evidence that she did not have an affair with one of the students. Instead, Schofield's evidence supports that she was not investigated by University of Idaho, and we've talked about this before. The University of Idaho did look into this and found absolutely no connection between Professor Schofield and any of the students. She, as far as the evidence shows, has never even met them, never taught them, had no relationship of any kind with any of them. Basically, they did investigate because she had requested information through a subpoena for discovery to them. And they said, there's nothing to produce. However, as of the date of the filing of the complaint, there were no arrests for the deaths. Well, that doesn't matter. Additionally, as of the date of the order, June 6, 2024, Mr. Koberger is legally presumed innocent. The criminal trial is pending, a gag order is in place, and most of the evidence regarding his criminal case has been sealed. What does that have to do with this? We're not talking about the merits of the criminal case here. This is not about the criminal case. This is about defamation. And Ashley Gillard can't show that any of the statements she made are backed up by fact. And the professor, on the other hand, is able to show that there is nothing connecting her to any of this, and therefore the statements are defamatory. The plaintiff is not proven as no evidence his defendant made knowingly false statements. What do you mean she doesn't have any evidence? She didn't do it. The police have said she didn't do it. That's all the evidence she needs that the statements were false. And based on the evidence that was available to her and statements made by the police, she should have known they were false, or she certainly negligently continued to repeat these statements even after law enforcement made it clear that none of it was true. The defendant maintains that she believes in her claircognizant abilities as well as spiritual practices such as oracle card readings and tarot readings. Gillard provided evidence that other tarot readings she conducted went on to be objectively true. I think she mentioned one thing, call it a lucky guess in my opinion, but that does not constitute proof that every tarot card reading she does is true. If she presented maybe 100 instances, that might lend a little more credibility to it, but she's not presented anything that would in any way prove that her readings are correct. Gillard also provided evidence that she believes in the accuracy of her tarot and oracle card readings. The plaintiff fails to meet this element of defamation. Okay, I don't doubt that she believes that they're accurate, but when you've got physical evidence and you've got law enforcement telling you that you're wrong, you've got to sit there and say, maybe I'm not correct, because there is no evidence to support the involvement of the professor in any of the allegations she's made. And she goes on to say the plaintiff has not proven she suffered actual injury because of the defendant's statement. Instead, she motioned for punitive damages to overcompensate for the fact she did not suffer any actual damages from Gillard's statements. The Supreme Court held in this particular case that the phrases compensatory damages and actual damages are identical. The amount awarded is based on the proven harm, loss, or injury suffered by the plaintiff. Well, these are punitive damages, not compensatory damages. I don't see what the relevance of that is. Plaintiff did not lose her job, family, friends, or support. Instead, this is really twisted, the way she's now trying to spin this. Instead, the professor gained support and popularity. Even if the statements were false, the plaintiff does not have a valid defamation claim because she did not suffer any losses. Well, that's for a jury to decide. That's not for Ashley Gillard to decide. Even though she was found liable for the defamation, the question of damages is still to be determined at trial. The defendant mentioned the plaintiff's lack of damages during the motion hearing. The court erroneously disregarded the topic as a matter for the jury. No, it didn't. It is a matter for the jury. The judge is not going to decide the question of damages. The judge wasn't asked to decide the question of damages, just to decide whether or not the claims for defamation had merit, and the court decided that they did. Plaintiff is not entitled to a judgment as a matter of law under Rule 56 to succeed in a motion for summary judgment. A movement must show that there is no genuine dispute. Okay, we don't need to rehash this. The court has determined there is no dispute as to any material fact or any issue of fact in this matter. Ashley Gillard can now appeal that decision. The court lacks jurisdiction because the plaintiff does not have damages over $75,000. So, in order to file in federal court, you have to either show that your damages are going to be greater than $75,000 or basically state and affirm that you are going to have damages that exceed $75,000. And then the court can take a look at that and determine whether it has jurisdiction. In this case, the court decided that it did have jurisdiction. So this question was decided a long time ago. Then she says, the order granting summary judgment has false statements of fact. First, the order begins by stating that Gillard posted over 100 sensational TikTok and later YouTube videos, falsely claiming that Schofield had an affair with one of the students and ordered the deaths of the students to hide the affair. Gillard did not post 100 TikToks about Schofield. Instead, she posted about 9 TikTok videos about Schofield with a duration of 1 minute or less. Okay, we're splitting hairs here. It really doesn't matter whether it's 10 or 100. It's sufficient to establish a claim for defamation, in my opinion. Critically, in response, defendant does not dispute that she communicated statements about plaintiff to others or that these statements, if false, are defamatory. And she's saying that that's a false statement. How could she deny that she communicated these statements? It's on video for everyone to see. So that's not a false statement. During the motion hearing in April, the defendant specifically stated she did not agree that the statements she made about Schofield are defamatory, even if the court found them to be false. This can be proven by reviewing the transcript of the hearing. The judge either made this critical error on the court order by mistake or blatantly lied due to his inability to be impartial. Again, not a wise move, and I do see on the docket that Rebecca Schofield's attorney has requested the transcript, presumably, to oppose this motion and to be able to state what the transcript says actually happened. So we'll have to wait and see how that comes out. I mean, I don't know what was said at the hearing, so I'll be interested to see what the opposition is to this. Due to the judge's personal lack of belief in Gillard's spiritual practices, judge acted in a way that impeded upon Gillard's right to an impartial tribunal. For example, the judge said that Gillard's spiritual practices and beliefs are arguably so outrageous as to be clearly baseless and thus implausible. Not that her practices are baseless, that the statements she made are baseless and outrageous and implausible. That's a big difference. He's not attacking her spiritual practices. He's talking about what she said. Those statements were baseless, without any evidence to support them. And she said during the hearing, the judge vehemently stated Schofield can file a lawsuit for defamation. Of course she can. The judge can't stop her from filing a lawsuit. Anyone can file a lawsuit. Again, illegally presuming the statements Gillard made are false. No. The judge is correct. The professor can file a lawsuit for defamation. It's up to the court and the jury to decide whether or not the case has merit. And in this case, the court found it did. He didn't presume that the statements were false. He went by the evidence and said they're clearly false based on the evidence we have. And she had the opportunity, Ashley Gillard, to present her evidence. And she had nothing to present other than, this is what I divined, and so it must be true because I believe it's true. The court is absolutely correct, in my opinion, in rendering judgment for the professor on the defamation claims. And again, here she goes. She's saying the order granting punitive damages against Idaho law. I don't even need to read this because the court didn't grant punitive damages, as we said. The court just allowed the professor to amend her complaint to add a count for punitive damages, and now at trial, it'll be decided or determined whether or not there actually are damages. So that hasn't been decided. So this is absolutely baseless, what she's saying here. So we don't even need to go over this. So it says tarot card and oracle card reading messages are not false statements of fact. A false or fictitious statement or representation is an assertion that is untrue when made or when used and that is known by the person making it to be untrue. Gillard made statements. Her writing's terrible. Gillard made statements are based on her spiritual beliefs. Therefore, her beliefs are not false statements. The court deems okay, you can't say a statement I make about somebody is my spiritual belief. If it's demonstrably false, it's demonstrably false just because of the way you've derived it is part of your spiritual practice. That doesn't mean that you can just say whatever you want, as I said before. And then her conclusion, for the reasons stated herein, the order is void. Unconstitutional, will not be supported by the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. I doubt that. I think they will uphold the court's ruling. It is in the best interest of the court, defendant, plaintiff, and justice for the court to correct its mistakes internally. Gillard respectfully moves the court grant her motion to amend the order, reverse the decisions, render the entire litigation and all orders void, dismiss the case, or if necessary, grant a new trial. Well, there hasn't been a trial yet. What she's left with now is basically to appeal the judgment. I don't think she has a leg to stand on, frankly. If she really believed she didn't need anything further in terms of going to trial for evidence other than the fact that they were her spiritual beliefs, then why is she going through the exercise of trying to gather up all of this evidence? She shouldn't need it at trial if all that matters is that her spiritual beliefs need to be respected, right? So she's asking the court not only to reverse its recent judgment and its decision on the motion to amend, but it's asking the court to basically reverse and undo everything that's happened over the year and a half of this litigation. I looked it up, and this is basically what I found, that you have 30 days from the entry of the judgment to file a notice of appeal with the U.S. Court of Appeals. However, filing a motion for reconsideration within 30 days of the entry of an order disposing of a motion stops basically the clock. So in other words, until the court decides her motion for reconsideration, when that happens, she'll have an additional 30 days to file her notice of appeal, which I'm presuming she will do because I'm certain that the court is not going to grant her motion for reconsideration. So Ashley Gillard did file her motion for reconsideration, such as it is, within the 30 days from the judgment, which was issued on June 6th. Now we'll wait to see what the court decides. I'm almost certain that the court is going to deny it. I'm sure the professor's attorney is preparing an opposition to this. I don't know whether the court will just decide it on what we call the papers or if they'll schedule a hearing. I'll let you guys know. I'll update you on what's going on. But I anticipate that this is going to get denied. I anticipate she'll then file an appeal, and we'll have to see what the appeals court does. My guess is they're going to deny her appeal. I'll keep you posted. Let me know what you think down below. And remember, this spiritual person, when she got the cease and desist from the professor's attorneys, she said she was going to use it for toilet paper. So that's how strong her spiritual conviction is, that she's got to become combative like that. It just doesn't jive. I think she's trying to now wrap religion around this because she thinks that's going to be her out, because I'm sure she's scared shitless that she's going to get whacked with a huge judgment. And again, we don't know what the jury's going to do until it actually makes a decision. But she had the power to end this a long time ago. She's chosen to double down. I want to thank somebody from Amazon who sent us, Diana R. sent us one of those really nice cat beds. Thank you so much, Diana. We really appreciate all of you who sent us stuff from the wish list. I don't have anybody to thank from buying me a coffee this time. But I want to, of course, thank, as always, our Patreon patrons. Thank you so much, you guys, for all of your continued support that helps to defer the cat's vet bills. I really, really appreciate it. And, of course, I appreciate all of our channel members. And we've added some more channel members. Thank you so much for your monthly support. That also goes to help defray the cat's vet bills. I really appreciate you guys so much. You guys are so great. We're heading towards now 60,000. I mean, we have a little ways to go, but we're continually adding subscribers at a decent rate. I really want to get to 60,000, so please like and subscribe. If you're not subscribed, I'd like to make 100,000 by the end of the year. That would be amazing. So help me get there, will ya? But in the interim, take care of yourselves, love one another, and I will see you in the next one.
Pretty please. Subscribe, like, and hit the bell. I get a treat for every new sub. Thank you.